everything is more expensive and everybody's broke, it seems like. So the schools don't have money, but they also like need stuff. But then there's things where like they say everybody, like I never understood why every kid had to bring in tissue, because I was like, my nose is never runny.
Hello and welcome to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, and today I'm excited to welcome Jessica Topper, award-winning author, former librarian, and current senior development coordinator at Buffalo Toronto Public Media. Cory McCants, performer and host of Buffalo Toronto Public Media's digital series, Compact History and Compact Civics. And Naila Ansari-Catilo, professor at Buffalo State University, choreographer, and performing artist. Those are just a few of the things all these people do. We'll be talking about more of them as we get into the show. We've got a great show for you today. First up, it is back to school season. Mm-hmm. So, pack your snacks, brace yourself, because back to school means, there's some things that it means a little bit of organizing and getting back in the grind. Yep. Then we're flipping your page to book scandals, where the drama isn't just in the plot twists. And finally, we're talking about AI. I cannot wait for Naila to talk about this.
My favorite.
About writing essays, whether it's writing essays, making playlists, or trying to replace your therapist. It's officially the class clown and the valedictorian rolled into one. But first, what are you talking about in your group chats? What's going on?
Actually, AI, because it was a big discussion we started back this week for faculty and staff at work, and that was a big topic of conversation in one of our meetings. Like we have to plan a separate meeting to have that conversation, actually. Yeah. So it was a very interesting few group chats with different people, like family members, friends, and how they feel about AI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't wait to dive into that and also hear some of your stories.
Wild.
Cory, how about you?
Group chats right now. My siblings may be planning a sibling cruise.
Ooh.
I don't really do the cruises. Being on water for that long, I'm not really with that. But my sister took a trip, and now she's like all about it. So we'll see about that. And in my friends group, it's about my birthday party. I told you last time I was gonna have it. We had it, and it was a blast. It was super dope. So they're going on and, oh man, it was so fun. I'm like, I know. You know what I mean?
I saw the posts and the photos in your story. It was dope. You look good. You look like you were celebrating your birthday properly.
Here we go, bossed up,
Popping bottles of seltzer, water,
ginger ale,
Didn't even catch that. I love it. How about you, Jess?
Well, I've got a college girls weekend reunion coming up. So we've mostly been talking about what are we going to eat and you know, all that important stuff.
Jessica's always out there now. Jessica's outside. Jessica's always out with a party. I know. I'm like, I need to get myself together. You were on a retreat last time.
Yeah, it just so happens. My one weekend of the summer. I'm actually out tomorrow.
Look at you. Good.
That's awesome.
Good. I appreciate that. We got to... Yeah, Naila and I got to get better at those
know, we're
things.
terrible.
We were talking about a wine tour. We didn't do that.
I know.
So there's still time, though. Fall's a good time for wine tours.
Yes, that's true. And apple picking.
And apple. Yeah, that...
Not with the kids, though.
I can go... No, I can look at the trees and have a glass of wine and then say they're pretty. I'm not climbing up there. So, I hate to say that summer is ending, but it's, we're in that... We're in that window, even though September still sometimes feels like summer in Western New York. But back to school is here. Yes. And Cory, I know, will you be getting back in the classrooms?
I mean, I won't be in the classroom unless, teachers call me in. But I will be, the start of the school year means work is picking up, and I will be in my office at the school. So, it's the same thing for the most part. Yeah. The same struggles.
So we're going to be transitioning into a new schedule. And then I know, Naila, you're back at classes.
Yes. Yep.
And it's just kind of crazy, though, this time of year, the marketing around back to school. And I'm not in this phase yet, but the school supply situation.
Oh, wild.
Yeah.
I can just tell you, because I have 3 that all needed school supplies, and we were in the hundreds of dollars. literally for like whole kits. And like now they have the thing where like different schools, you can pay for a kit to have it there and just pay a solid $87 for your second grade.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Right.
That was for very limited time.
Very limited time. Yeah. And then you got to go get out on your own.
Okay. And they're very specific lists, right?
Oh, yeah. Like, I didn't even care at one point because it was like all yellow highlighters. And I'm like, I don't care. It's fine. You're like, we're not going to get kicked out of school because you got an orange highlighter instead of a yellow one. Yeah. They don't have all the packs, and I'm not giving Amazon any more of my money. Yeah. So you have a yellow, a red, a pink, and an orange. Yeah. That's how we're writing.
And did you have to label every single one of them?
No, knew that because everybody shops at the same place. So everyone has the same exact crayons, everything.
So I was wondering that because I had to get labels for, like, we're not in pre-K yet. We're in daycare. So, but it's like pre-K. Whatever they call it. But then I'm looking at these label packs that you can get, and there were labels for like highlighters and stuff for like older kids. I'm like, you have to label that stuff?
Yes, everything. Because they will take it. It's like, there's like community disinfectant wipes and facial tissues and all those things. Yeah. And then there's like your stuff that needs to be specific because everybody has the exact same thing. I use that little, like, I actually used to make fun of my mom for using it. She has like a label maker. Yeah. It looks like a calculator. And I was like, this is wild. I absolutely took that.
Oh, that's better.
You see why. Now you see why.
Now I see why. I'm like, are you serious? I was like, are you really labeling in the kitchen right now? I definitely took that and labeled everything.
Everything.
Each child's name. Full name, too, because if you got two of the same first names, that's also, you got to differentiate between the two.
And then,
or three.
I also feel bad because I feel like the school supplies are all gone out of the stores by a certain time, too. Oh, yeah.
It's true. Yeah. And sometimes you're just like forced to kind of go online and do bulk. And even like, so you're getting more things you need, especially like if there's like pencils. You just have like so many pencils, just having them, not even like mechanical ones, just the old number twos, all that lead, anti-lead, whatever.
Oh,
It's wild, which is why it's like, what happens with the money that's like, I don't remember having to pay for all these school supplies when I was going to school. I just remember the school having them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe it's something personalized, like your supply bag, maybe. But.
Right. Everything is more expensive and everybody's broke, it seems like. So the schools don't have money, but they also like need stuff. But then there's things where like they say everybody, like I never understood why every kid had to bring in tissue because I was like, my nose is never runny. Like, if the teacher is in charge of their classroom, they have to buy that extra stuff. So if every kid brings in a box of tissues, then they have tissues for the year. You know what I mean? So like in those ways, I get it because a lot of the pressure is on the teachers, but it's still like the schools, like, where is this? I don't get it. Where is this money going?
I think all the teachers need to have a stipend so they can take care of their classrooms.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather parents give some money to their teachers to do whatever they need in their classroom because they're like pulling out of their pockets all the time to like decorate their classrooms for their kids. I don't know. I just feel like the money needs to just go to the teachers. Teachers need to get more money.
Well, and the families can't. There's families that can't. I mean, if you have multiple kids and you're spending $100 a kid on school supplies, that's really hard. And then you have to wait for the paycheck to use that. And then there's no school supplies in the stores because they've already flipped to Halloween. You know, and everybody's buying them.
And the art teacher's like, y'all not coming over here because I'm limited in my supplies. Y'all not coming to take my crayons. It's a lot.
I also been. Well, I mean, dorm rooms are another thing, but even the locker decorating and all the stuff for the lockers.
There's actual products. Like you can have a rug for your locker and a chandelier.
Really?
Oh, it's,
for your locker. Like, we used to have to cut stuff out of.
Like a little
magazine. Like, why are y'all in the hallways that long?
Yeah.
What's the recess situation like if y'all have all that time in between to grab books?
Yeah.
We hung a mirror.
A mirror.
And that was it. Mirror, a little freshen up, maybe a little deodorant, something like that.
You want to cut something out of a magazine, that's fine. But like, man,
there's like full living room setups in the locker. In case you're just joining us, you're listening to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, here with Jessica Topper, Cory McCants, and Naila Ansari-Catilo. And I mean, of course, we're talking about back to school, and there's always now marketing around the school supplies and the folders. And then don't even get me started about the dorm room stuff. Listen to me over here being like, when I went to college.
Back in my day.
There's just whole sections of
for
stores
dorms.
4 dorms. There's TikToks and like, and I'm like, those do not look like dorm rooms.
No.
Sure.
And even like on Facebook, there's Facebook groups for the parents of the kids showing up at the colleges, and they're showing pictures of this is where the closet is situated. Yeah.
Wow.
So they're planning out before they even get to
Do they
set up.
still have to put their beds on cement blocks, or is that?
That's what I used to have to
I
do,
know.
man.
I had a whole we had to share bathrooms.
Yeah.
Like dorm, like the whole floor. Like,
Right,
not even
right.
just, like,
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there's
you had like your
now
shower
people have like
caddy.
bathrooms in there. I was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
It's a different
Rugs.
time.
Different
It's a different time. Man.
So what does back to school mean for adults, other than the financial strain of buying all of the clothes? Like, I don't. Kids' clothes now.
Yeah.
Here I am. Listen to me right now on my.
Yeah.
I mean, the back to school fashion for kids. Like, there's like the Today Show had like a whole back to school fashion show for like little kids.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
It's like, and I mean, like the H&M brands and stuff like that. There's like H&M Kids. There's always been like Gap Kids. And, I mean, some of the stuff's a little more reasonably priced, but some of it is like
Some
you're
of it
like
is
paying
absolutely
teenage
outrageous.
Yeah.
adult prices. I don't know how you have older kids.
I don't
like-
either. That's what I get nervous about because the younger ones you can still ride on the 50% off at Old
Yeah.
Navy.
Yep.
It's when they get a little bit older. Although I was very proud because last time I was in Old Navy, I saw 2 teenagers and they're with their mom. And I was like, you know what, girl, you get that. Don't let them get you into getting you essentials and stuff like that. Good for you. Good for you.
Yes.
Good for you. And they had some nice, you wouldn't even have known they were like Old
Yeah.
Navy brand.
Yeah.
I said, I'm proud of you holding strong because they look like they go wild in
Yeah.
like some Abercrombie or something.
Yeah.
So I was very proud. I was very proud of her holding her
Yeah.
guns for back to school shopping.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You can still, my little one, I can still get the $5 t-shirts
Oh, yeah.
and stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
from Old Navy. So, there's that, but also, even for people without kids, September does kind of feel like there's just like a reset in September.
Yeah.
You feel it. You do. You feel like the time change. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, but that's also because, on your way to work or whatever it is, like there's school buses and
Yeah.
like as you're driving, you see kids on the side waiting for it. So like all of that feel is there. And then also like Spirit Halloween shops are up everywhere.
Oh,
I mean,
saw
like,
that
so
too.
yeah, that's how you know, like, fall is coming.
It's all marketing.
Yeah, but so I mean, for me, working in education, like for educators and people who work in it, you know what it means because work is back happening. But for those that work all year round in that way, you know what I mean? I do think you still feel it. You still can tell it's that time of the year.
Yep. Well, I think too, even as like younger adults and even as kids, you always had this like summer off, and then you start a different schedule all the time in September. So I think that's kind of still ingrained in me because even like when you're in college, like you might have a summer job and then you're going back to school.
Right.
Yep.
So you still have that going. And you have a daughter in college, right, Jessica?
Actually, she's out of college. She's going to trade school now.
Oh, wow.
And she's starting up in end of August. Yep. So
Good for her.
Are you still at the stage where you have to move her in places, or is that okay?
yeah, she's home. She's going to commute from home.
Yeah.
So kind of nice.
Yes,
But,
yeah.
yeah, but she still had to deal with the FAFSA and all the financial aid
right,
stuff.
Yeah,
right.
because it's still the same.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which
It's
is
hard.
another thing right now.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's statistics on college enrollment being down, especially in arts and social fields. It looks so. Buff State Niagara University have seen a decline in enrollment this year. UB looks like it's on trend, about 30,000 students, but I mean these are kind of arbitrary
Well, yeah, because
numbers.
you take those international students
Yeah.
away from the UB, that's a whole different ballgame because they have a lot of international students.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, when you have the federal government that's highly involved in financial aid, and also it's just a different world. Like people were always kind of pushing their kids into computer science, and now you don't need people to be coding anymore. So now there's a New York Times article that came out about how, all these students, were pushed into wanting to be computer science majors, and now they can't find jobs because, well, I don't need you to code anymore. So it's an interesting shift. I think higher ed in general is just it's trying to find itself in this new age, not just of like AI, but just in the age of a new administration that isn't necessarily supportive of higher education and doesn't want a lot of people to get educated. So it's a fight that across the board, I think, everyone is really feeling it, like decline in enrollment and retention numbers are across the country. It's not even just locally here.
Yeah, no, it's not just here. It's everywhere. And then even programs being cut. Or,
because you have to do deactivations, which is like you basically are graduating through that last year. So you take that cut off in January. We're not taking any more majors, but you have to let them graduate, and then you kind of figure out what happens after that. But students are trying to figure out, like, is college for them? Do I even need college?
I think a lot of it is kids not even wanting to go because I'm telling you, 18-year-old me, 17-year-old me, like, if I could be an influencer,
right?
I need college. Like, I want to be an actor, but like I could just be discovered from streaming. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if that's the case, or if I think that's a possibility, it's a lot of kids like, do I even need college?
Well, and I think with the financial opportunities being under, like, maybe not available, and seeing maybe people before them that have been paying loans, and also the whole system being uncertain right now.
Yeah.
For families, it's maybe not an obvious choice anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, trade school is still.
Well, because there's certain
great,
things that you need people to do, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be things you need a human in the loop, is what they call it. But it's a struggle now, and I see it too, because the one thing I think people are forgetting about college, specifically in education, that is, it is there to teach you to learn, to think differently, to critically think. And I think it's a maturing mechanism. Some kids don't need that. Like, some kids are kind of, naturally mature and like, all right, I want to go and I want to work and I want to get into this space. You have a whole lot of kids now that are in that funky position that are like, I don't want to go to college. And they just like, I need to figure out who I am and all this other stuff. Because once they do go into college, that is also a hit in the head, because you are dealing with professors and faculty and staff that are going to treat you like adults. So I find that there's an immaturity that's also not allowing a lot of kids to feel comfortable going to college either, because they're like, oh, I wasn't ready to really be on my own.
Yeah.
Like they don't know, like your parents, like they're so used to, like, they have a grade and, oh, I'm just going to send it to your parents, and they're like, their parents are on them. Like, you can't do that in college. Like, your parents can't get your information. There's a whole, liability that goes into that.
Well, and then you make, if you are in college for a year where you don't really know if you want to be there, or you are maybe not doing well, that's a year that you're paying for, maybe when you're not ready yet.
And my kid was a class of 2020 kid leaving high school.
Oh, yes.
So her college experience was so different, and I couldn't give her any advice because I hadn't gone through that type of isolation. So it really got her thinking, missing that component of bonding with her peers. And she said, why? The guidance counselors just said, you got to go to college. Like, that's what's next. And nobody talked about trade school, and, definitely an option.
Those supportive environments are extremely helpful in college. Like, I know with, the departments I'm in, that we really try to focus on helping, like, nurturing the whole. And theater and Africana studies are by nature departments and programs like that. Not every department is like that.
Right.
We know all of our students. We are with them all the time in rehearsals and at night. And, all of our students in Africana, like, we're protesting today, so we need to make sure we know where they are in case they get arrested. Like, all of those things are real for our departments, but I don't know that has translated in every single department, in every single field, on how do you build that relationship, because these kids, particularly COVID kids, they have to have that additional support, because they really were home by themselves, alone and depressed, trying to figure it out. Just like we all were as an adult. And now they're trying to go into a whole new world after just literally sitting at home for 2 years, not having, proms and graduations and all of those kind of things. It's traumatic for a lot of young folks.
Cory, you work with younger kids.
Yeah.
How do you help them think about the decisions they have to make as they get older and get into college years? Because that's a lot for younger kids.
I think it is. I think it is. And I think you get a sense of, like, where their mind is. Like, by 8th grade, you get a sense of, like, if they're even thinking about it, and the ones that are like, it's not really an option or don't want it. But, like, so for me, when I first moved back to Buffalo, I was teaching at a charter school, and it was like 4th and 5th grade. We built a year each time, but, like, those 4th graders are now, I think, juniors in high school now. So it's, like, really crazy, because they were, like, even seeing them in 4th grade and in 5th grade, and then going through COVID and then their bounce back versus the fourth graders that came in after or during COVID. Even though it's like a 2-year difference, like you were talking about maturity, psychologically, it is insane. And so like where I'm at now dealing with 8th and under, these 8th graders, they, their life was, all they knew was COVID and beyond.
Yeah.
And so to talk to a junior who I had before, who was in school before COVID, or to talk to an 8th grader who only knows COVID, it is such a crazy difference in what they expect and what they think is possible and like the practicality of it all. And so it's like, you do your best. You know what I mean? You do your best as an adult to be like, look, I don't want to be a guidance counselor forcing a kid to feel like they have to go to college, but I also don't want every kid thinking that they can just be a streamer or or to have a
that's a whole nother conversation because
maybe just have a backup player.
Listen, we're gonna
maybe
we're gonna dig into that a little bit
talent
later.
Is real too.
Listen,
we need to not have people thinking they're experts with no expertise. That's a problem.
Everybody,
I like that line.
That's a really great way to put it. Because everybody has an opinion, and in today's time, everybody can voice their opinion and publish their opinion, when that might not need to be what's happening. And so these kids feel like, I'll just do this. I've had so many students tell me like, I'm just gonna, be this. I'm like, well, do you do anything now? Like, no, I will when it's time. Like, whoa. You 14 now. I feel like if you're gonna do this, like, most athletes got discovered in high school. They were on their way after, like, so if you're 14 and never was on a basketball team, I don't know how it's going to happen, bro. You might want to, but it's just a difference.
All right. We're going to dive a little bit more. I think we're going to get into those conversations too when we talk about AI in schools. Mm-hmm. We're going to, first, when we come back from the break, though, we're going to get into some book scandals because I know you all did your summer reading lists like you promised. So we're going to jump into books a little bit before we dive into the AI situation. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about books, some scandals in nonfiction. So don't go away. Group chat on BTPM NPR. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us again on Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, and I'm joined by Jessica Topper, award-winning author, former librarian, and current senior development coordinator at Buffalo Toronto Public Media. Cory McCants, performer and host of Buffalo Toronto Public Media's digital series Compact History and Compact Civics. And Naila Ansari-Catilo, professor at Buffalo State University, choreographer, and performing artist. I think of all of your bios in my head when I'm saying that stuff, and I'm like, there's like 20 more things we could be saying about all of you. So we were, just discussing back to school. I know you all did great on your summer reading lists, which actually adults are doing summer reading lists now.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It makes more sense now, honestly. Like now I like to read. When I was a kid, I didn't even want to read.
Yeah.
There's even bookstores that do like a pizza party if you read enough books, just like you did in grade school. Yeah.
See, that's because Jessica's really into reading books. That she knows that.
And I like pizza.
I'm a very, very big fan of pizza.
Everybody remembers the pizza parties or the free little pizzas you got for the summer reading.
Yes, we had Domino's or Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut, I think.
Yeah.
I was probably a generation before you guys, but we had, well, not a generation, but a decade, but we had book balloons. You read a certain number of books and you got a postcard. And then at the end of the summer, this is so bad for the climate and the environment, but we launched balloons, helium balloons from behind the school with the postcards tied to them. And then people could mail them back so we could see how far they traveled.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So that was pretty neat.
That's awesome.
But there hasn't been like a good substitute that would
Wow. That's so cool.
I like that the adults pizza reward for books.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that. I just finished a book.
Oh, come on,
you guys.
Was that the one you were reading before?
I don't know.
No, okay, yeah.
I was like drawn. I was in the library with my son and I was like drawn to this book, and it said Unmask Alice, and it was basically about do you guys remember? It was taught for a while, not taught for a while, but it was around for a while, Go Ask Alice, which was actually written in like the 70s.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But it was basically supposedly a journal about this girl that had in high school that had, became addicted to drugs. I think at the time it was LSD. And then her journal just stopped. So you know, she passes away. And it was like, I remember my grandmother finding this book that I read, and she's like flipping through this book. I was like a preteen, and she's like, "You should not be reading what is in this book." But then they were kind of using it as like a teaching guide, like all parents need to read this book. This is what your kids are doing. Yeah. Well, it turns out it might be all false. So that's what this book was about. Like it was like a fabricated. It was like an author that made up Beatrice Sparks. She kind of like made up the story. It might have been based on somebody that she knew, but it was never really confirmed. But there's 2 Library of Congress cards on it, and one says nonfiction and one says fiction. So
that's interesting.
So yeah. And
I remember a badge of honor. You carried that book. I can still picture the cover. It was very dark and it had just like one eye.
One eye. Yes.
But the fact that it said anonymous as the author.
Yes.
You know, there was nothing in the copyright info that identified anybody. So as a kid, you were like,
right.
This is real. Who did this?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then she kept kind of putting these books out and making up like the endorsements.
Like the world of book authors.
and then there was another book that she fabricated about kids being involved in cults because like, you know, they couldn't explain like teenage mental health. So they were like, oh, these kids must be involved in cults because that would, you know. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
But it was a whole thing. So, but I didn't know about this until I saw this book. But so recently, The Salt Path, which I haven't read this. Do you know about this, Jessica? It was a memoir about an author, her ill husband, homelessness. And then that is allegedly now not true.
Yeah, there was like a big expose, I guess, in a newspaper to explain there were some inconsistencies. And it had to do with both his illness, like the chronic illness that he had was, you know, how could he be marching across England? That was their whole thing. They were doing a trek after they lost their home. And something about how they lost their home as well was a little vague, whether they had some financial issues, I guess. Yeah.
So
messy.
it's memoirs sell. Like we're drawn to real stories. So there's like a whole discussion around how you market, even if these publishing companies know that it might not be. How do they verify that something is a memoir or something is nonfiction? Right. Because they know memoirs sell, so they're just putting that memoir stamp on it, and not, you know, is that something we have to worry about? So when you read a story, are you more drawn to something that's real? Do you feel like cheated if you find out a story isn't real because it's the same words? Would you still be?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's definitely a difference if you're hearing an amazing story that is real versus something that someone just made up. I feel very strong. I feel very strongly. We may have even talked about this on the show, and it probably doesn't deserve the attention I give it or the like spirit I give it. But the story Push by Sapphire, and the movie Precious, derived from Push, a story by Sapphire, whatever. I was never a fan of it, and it was because when I first heard about it, I was like, "Wow, is this like the true story of someone? Like that's crazy." But then when it wasn't, I was like, so a guy just made up the worst stuff he could think about a person and was like, yeah, and this is a story. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get it, but I'm like, you just made up a bunch of messed up stuff. Like, it's just made up. So I just didn't understand like the spirit behind it. Yeah, like why everybody was on. Because I'm like, it's just a made up story. So in that sense, I do think like, well, if someone overcame something and it was a true story, I'm like, this person shows perseverance. This is amazing. Like you can look at this person as like proof that you can do it. But if it's made up, it's like,
I know.
You can make anything
just
up.
Be fiction, right?
Yeah,
That's what it is. Because I think people read memoirs so that they can see that they can get through themselves, especially when people are having a I mean, at least that's where I'm looking at. Like I just read Malcolm X's autobiography again. And you just read through, you know, obviously given what was happening in the climate, I'm like, I need some motivation to like really fight the good fight. And that, like, if I found out that was a lie, I don't know what I would do. Like, I teach it in my class. Like, I don't know what I would do. I would be like devastated because you feel this like level of empathy for someone that really has gone through something, and then you also equally feel inspired that you can, you know, you can fight the good fight to keep going because everybody has these downfalls.
It's real.
And so I do feel like I feel like it's unfair when you do that to your readers because we get so invested. It's our time.
Yes.
Right. And it's also like our imagination. It's so much of I think reading's so personal that when you take that away, it's like a therapist lying to you.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just shared all of this information to someone and then they gave you this advice and you found out it was like the advice was like bad.
Just with you.
And it was, and you didn't go through that. And
right.
Because you can always relate to struggle in some ways, and then you feel like empathetic, and you actually feel emotions. I think when you're reading along with these.
I've cried reading books. I mean, I get very emotional sometimes. Well, if it's well written.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because that's another.
And there's your memory, you do sort of embellish things over time. Yeah. You start telling that story and it gets a little bolder and bigger, but there's a difference between that and actually making stuff up or taking advantage of, vulnerable, exploiting people.
Right.
Who might be suffering from something and it could do real harm if you've fabricated a tale.
Yeah. I mean, like doing weed once and then like LSD or like that's a big
Yeah.
Well,
stride.
that book, A Million Little Pieces. This was like kind of like the start. Remember that whole scandal? Because it was in Oprah's book club.
Yep, I remember that.
And he had this like these opening scenes, also a book about addiction and like these opening scenes in the book where he's on a plane and he passes out and he was beaten up and he didn't know where he was. And like, it was very like people that were struggling with those things really like grabbed onto it. And then there was a lot of talk about, this being an honest memoir of what people go through. And then it turned out to be fictional, and like kind of as you were saying, people felt a little cheated. And then he was trying to say, okay, well, maybe I didn't remember things correctly. So that was the first thing. So people were like, okay, maybe you were
high.
But then it was turned out none of that.
Didn't Oprah like confront him about it?
Yeah, she did. I didn't know if they did an interview or something, but I remember it was like a big to do because it makes her look bad too because it's like, well, did you not fact check before you got this man millions of dollars on his book?
And that's like another level of endorsement because you're like, wow, Oprah,
of course.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be real, right? She basically has like the FBI to investigate if she needed to. Right? Yeah.
But so I feel how I feel, especially about Pushed by Sapphire. But I also wonder on the flip side of it, like you try and look at both sides. And so I also wonder if this is more of a like R&B versus rap type thing, wherein as an R&B singer, you can have an album full of a relationship, a marriage, a breakup, and all that, and no one cares because it's like, it's a song. Or you can be Beyonce has not written all of her music, a lot of her music she hasn't written, and it's like, but she's a singer, right? So like Neo wrote this song for Rihanna, but no one judges Rihanna for it because it is what it is. But rappers are like, you didn't write this, then you're not a rapper. Right? You don't live this life, you're not legit. And it's like, what is the difference? So like in movies, you have mockumentaries, you have documentaries that are loosely based on things. You have true inspired stories, right? This is inspired, but the only thing that's inspired is like 2 of the characters' names, right? And nothing else is true. And so people go into those movies thinking, this is a real story. This really happened. How many people thought Paranormal Activity was like real?
Right.
Because it was like so unknown, you know what I mean? Yeah. And they didn't say this is fiction. They were like, you might think it's fiction, you know what I mean? And so I wonder if novels and books are similar to R&B or to rap, where movies are similar to R&B, and it's like you just give it pass for this. Now, saying it's a memoir is different. That is like putting it out there differently.
Right.
But I don't know. I also wonder how much we judge them based on being a book, or like what. I guess it depends on what classifies a memoir as. How much of it has to be that, or if there's any level of like you can pull from fiction, or I don't know.
Well, and I think in the end, like publishing companies are their first level of reading a story. They're thinking about marketing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They want to know
how much it's sell, and if it's interesting, and then if it's good, like third.
And if somebody and if somebody says it's a memoir, they're like, that memoir is going to sell. Are they really going to dive into?
But it's also really difficult to be a writer and an author. So I think there is that expectation that like you write, so you read well and you're really educated and you're intelligent. So I think we do have that expectation of writers that quote unquote make it. But then, I mean, there's a whole nother thing on like the New York Times bestseller now where like all these celebrities are writing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But when I think of like someone like Jessica who's like a real writer, I'm like, Jessica, it is like, but you know what I mean? There's such a because I know how long it takes to write and to really edit and like that kind of focus and discipline. It is like that's like always like inspiring to me when I meet an author that really can do that and have that kind of imagination. Yep. That when I find out someone's not doing that, I'm like, this is bad. Yeah, this is not good.
Yeah, well, I think with the nonfiction, I mean, they do have a legal team that will sit there and they'll go through it. You know, full disclosure, I think The Salt Path was actually published by one of my publishers.
Oh, sure.
Published my first 4 novels. But, you know, with novels, with fiction, they're making sure, like, you didn't plagiarize this, did you? Or, you know, copyright. They'd rather, you know, you not try to use music in your book and get dinged for that. So, yeah, I don't really know. I know that they put a lot on the author. Like, you do your due diligence.
Right.
Yeah. And you sign a contract if you're a nonfiction author saying, like, this is accurate to the best of my knowledge.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this. Is a biography that is co-written or, you know, there's some people who wrote their biographies and they are not written by that person. Are they still considered that? Wait, biography. Is it a biography or autobiography that's written by you?
Autobiography.
So if a person writes an autobiography about themselves, and we know they did not write this joint by themselves, is that still an autobiography?
I mean, there's ghostwriters.
Ghostwriters,
But that's not.
So that would be a biography
I think
then,
there
right?
is something where people need help, right? Because the problem is, like, some people, when they do an autobiography, you want it to come from the person, but sometimes they just don't necessarily write well.
I get that, but what I'm saying is does that not make it less of an autobiography in the same way that this memoir is? I mean, some stuff is straight up made up, but talking about the specifics of what stuff is and what classifies it, this autobiography is not that if you didn't write it. Even though it's about you.
That's true.
And so it's
I feel that.
And is it a biography or is there another term that we need to come up with now? It can't be a memoir, right?
An oral
because
history.
Oral history.
Inspired by.
I do like when people write their own autobiographies that you're interested because it sounds like them and you're like, this is believable. Like you can get an editor to be like, okay, your grammar's bad. Let me just like, let's work this out a little bit. But to your point, it's like if someone has a ghostwriter, I guess that's again kind of feeling like, okay, but you didn't really
That's right. That's the R&B rap thing. I'm telling you, man. I don't know if we're judging it on an even scale.
And you know, to Jessica's point about the fact checking is like whose responsibility is it? But if you're signing a contract and saying something is nonfiction and you researched it, so then that kind of goes back on the author. Yeah. What about stories? I know, Jessica, you write primarily fiction. But there might be stories that are inspired by things that have happened.
So it might get put in my novel if I'm overhearing a conversation. It might go in there.
So do you talk about that? Because like, do you think that draws people in a little bit more that something might be based on an experience, or because it's fiction, do you just leave that out?
I mean, there's always that like disclaimer in the beginning of the book saying like what is it? I'm trying to remember the words.
All names have been changed.
No, not even that. Any resemblance to a person living or dead is purely coincidental. And I've definitely read books where I'm like,
I know who this is.
It's not coincidental. But, I think I usually take like the story seed, like a little idea, and then I'll just sprout it out bigger. So I would hope nobody could recognize. My mother-in-law did ask me once, like, is that based on me?
Oh, shoot.
That evil mother-in-law? No,
not at all. No, of course not.
The answer is always no.
The J-Lo and Jane Fonda movie that inspired me.
So Okay, so apparently a few large publishers or high-profile nonfiction projects have dedicated fact checkers. So HarperCollins and Random House sometimes do this for major releases. But I'm glad you shed light on the fact that you do have to sign these contracts. Now, what about legacy or like you were talking about Malcolm X? Legacy books that are past stories and interpretations of that. do you really want to know, like, how deep do you dive into seeing who's writing these?
Well, it depends on what it's for. If it's just for my leisure, that's one thing. If it's for my students and scholarship, that's a whole nother thing. And that's actually very important to me, and who writes it and who's credible. Because you can have now, it's like how many books are written on like Abe Lincoln? Right? Like, it's like a lot of people. A lot of them, I also don't think they're probably the best historians to be writing about Abe Lincoln. It's like because people can become so popular that anybody can write about them to sell a book. So I think it's important in that aspect to understand who's writing, depending on what you're reading for and why you're reading it.
That's a really good point.
So if you're reading for information, you're reading for,
like don't go on Facebook probably and get, it's just, I just wrote this book.
Well, fact checking is a whole other situation right now with everything.
Right.
So, I feel like that's the first thing that like media companies and, even before like the whole AI era and the fake news era, the first things that publishers or media companies were cutting were fact checkers, and they were kind of like leaving it on the writer. And, so there was like a trend of that already starting before all of this. But I mean, now I feel like it's more important than ever, especially I just can't wait for Naila to talk about AI, because I know she's got stories about this.
So many stories.
But there's a lot of commercial pressures around publishing and creating that, and timelines where there's just expected to be content. So do you feel like maybe that's inhibiting some of the final stages in putting things out there?
Well, now I feel like the book world is so commercialized in a way that it's just not about good writers anymore. Like, I actually think it's really hard to find well-written books now, because so many people are writing books, and like they're just getting, like, oh, I want to start a publishing company. So come on, let me just write about my experience and put it out there. Which is why I think you do have these like legendary authors or people that have written more than one book be able to write more than one book because they're actually good at it. So I feel like now we're going to a world where people are trying to separate like more commercialized things from what's actually really well written and just really great stories. And I think that's important, because we can go down a wrong rabbit hole. And I feel like books are kind of like our last thing right now that's keeping us kind of honest and true, because when someone's well read, it's because that they're choosing the right books from authors and scholars and historians that know what they're talking about. Yeah.
Well, when we come back from the break, we are going to talk about how AI is affecting some of these things. In particular, since we are in back to school time,
writing
students and papers. So Group Chat on BTPM NPR. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, here with my guests, Jessica Tapper, award-winning author, former librarian, and current senior development coordinator at Buffalo Toronto Public Media; Cory McCants, performer and host of Buffalo Toronto Public Media's digital series, Compact History and Compact Civics; and Naila Ansari-Catilo, professor at Buffalo State University, choreographer, and performing artist. I think that AI has come up so much in Group Chat, but now that back to school is happening, and there's been a lot of discussions about use of AI in schools and papers with students. And I know we have a great group here to talk about this. So, there are schools that worry, educators that worry that AI enables plagiarism, shortcuts, undermines original thought. So if you take that angle of it, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I'll just break this up, because I've just literally been having conversations about this, especially with like my colleagues. Kelly has been cheating off Kevin since the beginning of time. So we need to just wrap that up right now. It's like, it may be feeling like it's happening more at like a faster pace, but like people have literally cheated for forever. So that notion of it, we need to stop, because that's what's been happening. People have also been using AI for over almost 50 years now, not realizing, like, anytime you go on your Microsoft Word or anything that you're using right now, AI is implemented in it, and it's like, oh, your period, it should be here, or your comma should be here, grammar, punctuation, all those things. So this idea that like AI is new also probably needs to stop. Does it function in a different way that people are used to? Yes. Is it this thing that's going to like just totally take over the world. No, you have to have what they call a human in the loop, which is humans. AI, we are so far from AI just functioning on its own without any human intelligence to help it that I don't even know why that's a conversation. And I think if people just actually tried to learn what AI is, they would feel a lot better. I use AI all the time in my classroom, and I actually encourage my students to use it because they are going to need it when they are working in the real world. And as an academic, as a scholar, your job is to ask good questions. AI is only as smart as you are. So I have to teach our students how to ask and how to prompt good questions and lines of inquiry so that you can develop and build these fields. What are you doing to work with the AI so that you can become a brighter person?
Okay.
It's taking our intelligence. Like, that's where it's coming from. It's coming from us. Like, it's scanning all of our intelligence, PhDs, whoever you can think of, that's where they're getting the intelligence from. And then it just magnifies at a faster rate than what we can do, which is fine. No, like, same thing with calculators and email when everybody was like losing their mind when people had to use Texas Instruments in the classroom or like when email came out. It's the same thing. It just feels like it's out of control because of so much that it can do. But we need to embrace it and learn how to use it as opposed to just being like, nobody can use that at all. I think it's actually very detrimental to not have students learn how to use AI because you are setting them back a lot.
So that's an interesting angle because maybe, if you get a student that turns in a paper that is AI and it's bad and it's incorrect, then so instead of saying don't use AI, you teach them how to use AI.
Yes. And also, we have had Turnitin for years, decades. There have been ways to check plagiarism since I can remember, since I've been in academia. All of these things have already existed. People have plagiarized for a very long time. It looks different because it's not just like a bibliography, like, oh, that looks odd, or like, oh, this quote is wrong, and I don't see it cited. So the plagiarism looks different, but plagiarism has always existed. And I think the issue is people don't understand how to look at a policy. But I can look at a paper and absolutely tell that a student used AI because I didn't even talk about what they're talking about in class. Right? Like, and I give this example all the time that I have a colleague, he was teaching a Black philosophy class, and like students were using like these like white Stoics as examples. He's like, I know I didn't teach that in this class. Right? And so a lot of it is to me, it's a teaching mechanism for our students to understand, first of all, why do you feel like you need the AI to teach instead of using critical thinking skills? That's the first question. So there's a cultural thing that has to change, to me, in the classroom to understand why AI is being used, not to just throw an essay together that you're going to fail. Right? Because I know that it's not you. And if you put any more of those dashes in there that like, there's so many things for us to know. You have to get on the other side of it, right? And so what I teach my students when it comes to AI is if it's almost like reversing it. Yeah. Here, if I'm teaching math, let's just say, and the ChatGPT gives me all the answers, well, I want you to tell me why that's right. Yeah. That's a different way of looking at it, and it still requires them to think, okay, well, this is the answer that I got. Okay, now let me go backtrack, because you have to fact check what it is. So now you actually have to be more of an expert nowadays than you ever had to be before time existed with technology.
Wow, I am just blown away right now.
So I there's so much of what you said that I agree with. There's so much, and I think the biggest point is that as a society, whatever, I feel like we need to focus more on teaching how to work with as opposed to just blocking, because that will never be the case. Right. And as people, especially as students, they will figure out a way around. So this like no phones. They will figure out a way to have phones in class. Right. No AI. They will figure out a way. And so I totally agree with that point. I do think that some of the understanding is like AI is different than a search engine. Right. And there are differences. And I think one of the things that I think people who either aren't literate in it, one of the things that scares them is the idea that like you can prompt AI to write a completely fiction or nonfiction novel, right? And you can't do that with a search engine, and you can't. So like, to your point of like, it's different, but it's not different in the same. I think it's truly different because we've never been able to use technology in these ways, and the depths that it goes is where it's like, it's almost like entering the unknown, like the dark web versus the internet, right? People think the internet is like this, and it's like the internet is 5%. Like the internet you use, your Google and all this stuff is 5% of what the internet is. 95% is the dark web, and it's very different. And I think that's close to what it is. So like two parts of the same beast, I guess. And so the first thing to me is, yes, learn how to use it and how to work with it. But it's very difficult, I think, to teach a certain age that because real life things have to come with the responsibility of using something like that.
Right.
So like before you understand your role or like what you like, or before you understand why you think things are important, if you're trying to use something like this, you're not going to connect with why you should or shouldn't do certain things. You have to be at a 7th grade level, when 7th graders are the ones that like start to get embarrassed, right? Around that age. So before you know embarrassment, you'll do anything, whether it's on camera or not. So teaching a 6th grader or a 5th grader like why you shouldn't post certain things doesn't make sense to them because they don't get the longevity. They don't get what embarrassment is.
Right.
So in that same way, I think trying to teach certain levels, whether it be, and this might not be age. This might just be like competency. Because to teach an adult, but if you're not at that level of competency to say, you need to use AI in this way as a tool, not as the answer. If it doesn't connect, it doesn't connect. And I think like that's where the fear is coming from. There's so many kids like, but I don't want to write the paper. So to understand like why I shouldn't use it to write the paper doesn't make sense because I don't want to write the paper. And they're not thinking about like, well, when you're in real life and have a conversation and someone asks you this and you have no idea why, like it's going to be a problem. It's just not connecting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think like that is a little bit where the worry is for me. I'm usually an optimistic person. I think you probably realize that. So like, I do have hope that this generation, being that they're like born into this, they will be far better than we are. Right now, I do see why that is a bit of a worry. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, and you brought up some interesting points too. I mean, I think teenagers and preteens, one of the things with everything that's really hard to teach them is they live so in the moment. Like adults, adults are always worried about things 10 steps ahead, and, teenagers are very in the moment. So they don't think about like what a social media post that they're doing right now, how it could affect them a week from now.
Right.
So they're very like, how am I going to deal with this situation?
That's right
now.
Now.
Yeah.
Especially.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say these chatbots interact with you so different than just a search engine. So the fact that you are kind of going with a back and forth, it's almost like having, a friend, a companion. And that's where I think, it can blur the lines with kids.
And I always say too, it's like outside of just the school functionality of it that I always kind of go back and forth with because I think that's also a teacher faculty thing that we have to figure out of how to learn it. But with some of the things that you all are talking about, I mean, it still goes to say that home training is the first training.
Well, I 100%
because
agree. Yes.
I think if we start a world where these kids also have access to AI without also understanding the fundamentals culturally of how things should function, the right and wrongs of things, you do get caught up in that, which is why therapy is so big for ChatGPT. And Sam Altman recently had to do an interview and was like, okay, this is not HIPAA compliant. So if we need to go to court, all of this is absolutely free reign for conversations that can be used against you. And I think that people don't understand is like, there's certain things that are HIPAA compliant. You do like Google or Amazon and stuff like that. ChatGPT is not.
No.
And it also is not things for you to get medical advice from or legal advice from. It's not like you can't ask it those things, but you need to, I don't know, call an expert.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
and I think that's the home training part of it.
Yes. No. And that, the home training are telling people not to, maybe if you have a child or a friend that's considering therapy and then they're going to try to do this AI chat, maybe those are the discussions we need to be having. In case you just joined us, you're listening to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, here with Jessica Tapper, Cory McCants, Naila Ansari-Catilo. We were talking about, writing, and then we got into the chatbots and the therapy. And so, and even legal. So it's like, what areas are we those areas where you might need an actual professional. And as you said, Naila, earlier, like there has to be a person involved in these things. So Illinois is the first state to ban AI from providing mental health therapy, because that can be a dangerous, very dangerous situation. But, you know, even as I was diving into this, I even think about how with a lot of the teletherapy that started happening.
Right.
And there seemed to be, you know, during COVID, because, and, you know, there was such a shortage for therapists that it seemed like all of a sudden these therapists were popping up everywhere. And I'm like, wait, did these people just get degrees overnight?
Yeah,
like how?
Right.
Yeah.
So I, you know, even Naila talking about earlier that like cheating's always happened,
Right.
you know, I think too, just this boom of all of a sudden all these online therapists that popped up. And it's like, how do we find out if their credentials? I mean, everybody's on Psychology Today now.
Right.
You know, that list, but like that AI therapy does scare me a little bit. And then also the AI being used in legal documents where you can, I actually tested this out. You can have a legal document drawn up for you in AI. It might be pretty accurate, but if you go to use that in court or you go to use that in a situation, it's not going to hold up because the language might not be there because you don't have a person then checking that.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you don't know anything about it, then you're completely relying on AI, which ChatGPT, at least it used to tell you, like, I'll get this like 85%, like up to 80% right.
Yeah.
And so if it's telling you that, but you blend in this program like sounding like a person, it sounds like an advisor to you. You blend in you not knowing anything about the subject, so everything sounds right. And then you blend in like, well, I just want the answer. And like that is a concoction for, yep, this is it. I mean, I myself have had a air quote, like legal document, like something that I'm trying to, like a contract. But like after I have this done and like it's helped me understand, I now want to bring it to a lawyer because I don't like, I do think money is another thing. Like,
it's great
talk to
for that. Yeah.
right. Like I'll talk to a chat bot therapist because I don't have money for a therapist. It's like some things you want to spend the money on. For me, I don't want to meet with a lawyer to ask this question for him to say this is what you gotta do, to meet back with him to say this is what you gotta do, to meet back. So I'm like, I'll use this thing how I want, keep the names out of it. I never like giving it my information.
Right.
But then when I have it, I'm like, all right, now I'll take this to someone and they can tell me what's right or wrong or make the edits. But like to go from AI made this and now it's out to the world is just like, but the home training thing or, you know, maybe it's just being an adult and knowing what you know, that's not everybody.
And AI is a good first draft of something.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
exactly.
and then you keep prompting it to give you better drafts of whatever it is. But I think with the mental health, I think the question we have to have is why do people feel more comfortable talking to a computer than they do a human?
That's it. That's the key.
And addressing the shortage. The shortage of actual trained professionals.
So Illinois is going to cut this because in some ways I can understand why people feel that comfort level because no one's in your business and you feel like it's not judging you. Because regardless of how people feel, it can take a long time to actually find a very good therapist.
Yes.
And so what is Illinois now going to do? So then if you have 100,000 people that are no longer going to be talking to their chatbot therapist, what are you going to now do? Because these people want therapy, but are you going to supplement for folks that can't afford it?
Well, right. And, you know, the wait lists forever for therapists were just, you know, you're having a crisis or you're, you know, maybe not a crisis to where you have to call like 911, but you're in a moment and you are at a point in your life where you like, I need therapy now. And then you get put on a 3-month wait list, you know, so it's, yes, the chat bot is a little scary. I don't know how couples therapy would work and that's like a new trend. I'm like, oh, how... And like, is it the person asking the question? Is it going to gravitate more towards like that person? And like,
it does try to please you.
Which is why, you know, just FYI for people, when you say please, it actually makes it function more, so it takes more energy. So you don't need to tell your bot please.
I've heard that.
Oh, you don't.
You don't need to be over.
Okay.
But I thought when the robots take over, they'll remember that I was so nice to them.
I say please.
You can just be standard. I need to do blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But when you say please, it actually makes it go overload. Like it's okay. Well, I got to get this done really fast, and then so energy wise, in terms of like climate, that also creates.
All right, I'll be more assertive with
Yeah, just know.
If you don't mind, could you please maybe think about?
Well, I'm just trying to be nice to Alexa because I don't want my son being like, I yell at Alexa a lot, and then he starts to yell at Alexa. So he thinks that's how you talk to people. So I gotta reel that in.
I think we have to get stronger with common sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that we have a large group of people, of a strong population that wants to use AI because they don't want to flex common sense and quite frankly, a little lazy.
Laziness, yes.
That's really what it is. I don't want to leave to go somewhere. And some of it I'm not knocking if it's depression and mental health issues that they're dealing with. However, a lot of it is you're also just lazy because some of the stuff you don't need the AI to do for you, right? Like, and there's difference between like generative, like AI and like AI that's like task-based LLMs, right? Like, no, I don't want a robot. Like, no, Degrassi was talking about this. Like, I don't want a robot to make my coffee, right? And now we're getting into a world where people are just being lazy and want them to like, you know, the vacuum thing is kind of cute, but you know, like I don't need you to do my laundry. I don't need you to. No, I mean, in theory, but there's certain things that we need to do.
We need to be able to do.
We need to be able to do on our own, and that we need to not rely on AI. And I think this is where it's starting to get funky because people are using it for laziness.
Yeah,
and what they're going to promote it as, they're promoting it as we're going to make these robots do this to free you up to do more. But what's going to happen is you're going to do nothing.
Right.
It's not that the robot's doing laundry so you can go be with the kids more. The robot's doing laundry so you can go watch Love Island.
Right.
But that's how they're going to promote it.
Right.
So I completely agree. Yeah.
Well, that's a good spot to find out what you guys are going to do this weekend. What are your weekend plans? Are you got more space now because you're using AI to do your laundry, or just chill out or watch Love Island?
Well, one thing AI is not doing for me is putting up this show for Dreamgirls.
Yes.
So it's opening September 10th. So we are strong in rehearsals without AI.
Yeah.
You are in it.
Yeah, and in the thick of it. So we're getting ready to go over to the theater in Tech, but we got the show up on his feet and legs in less than 2 weeks. So that was
awesome.
Amazing, big cast. So get tickets.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
Those tickets.
I am currently writing and getting ready for the next episode of Compact History.
Woohoo.
We got like a little standalone episode, so that should be really great. And I'm working with my boy Travis, who's been on the show before.
Yeah.
With a podcast. He has this book, what is it, Mafia, Buffalo versus the Multiverse. We're going to be doing some really cool things with it. And he asked me to help him. So this week I'm going to be getting all on board with that.
Nice.
So hopefully I'll have some more things to tell you. Yeah.
I can't wait. What
and
about
going
you,
back
Jessica?
to human interaction and having relationships. These were the girls that I met freshman year, dorm, Porter Hall, Buff State.
Wow.
So yeah, 5 of my girlfriends.
That's amazing.
Just gonna kick back and relax.
I love it.
Jeff.
I am going to see Oasis in Toronto, and then I'm off for a week. Yeah, but I'm not really technically on vacation because daycare is closed for a week before school starts again.
Yeah,
so I'm just not here.
Right.
Still working.
Well, that wraps up today's episode of Group Chat for now. If you want to continue the conversation, make sure you follow us on Instagram at BTPMNPR. Also, check us out on the video podcast on Buffalo Toronto Public Media's YouTube channel. I'd like to thank my guests Jessica Topper, Cory McCants, and Naila Ansari-Catilo. I'm your host, Bentley. Have a great weekend, and thanks for listening.